Well, let's celebrate your incredible performance in this film, Sean.
Thanks.
It's so great. It's absolutely knockout. It's terrifying. It's entertaining. I mean, when you work with someone like Paul Thomas Anderson, I heard you say that he has no relationship with convention. Is that a gift for an actor to have that playground then?
Yeah, I think one of the ways, one of the sort of new thoughts that I had that came out of it was we were trying to solve a storytelling problem. And I, thought that I have a fairly original thought. And I shared it with him how we could solve it. And he said, well, I know that's what we're supposed to do. He has an allergy to any of those things, which automatically makes things more surprising.
Yeah. How much of this character was on the page? Because the performance is this whole 3D kind of just wonderful experience that we get. It's the physicality, it's the unspoken, it's the costume, it's everything about it sort of thing. All these different elements that really bring him to life. How much of that was on the page, and how much was that with collaboration with Paul in terms of getting ready for that first day of shooting?
If what I'm going to say is delusional,
Good.
then it's a delusion that I guess Paul would have counted on my having.
Yeah.
It reminds me, the first movie I ever directed was based on a Bruce Springsteen song.
Mm-hmm.
So the song is, 2 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever it is.
Recording stopped.
How rude. Highway patrolman. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and the only relationship I have to it is that's the story. All of the 2-hour movie was what I heard in the song.
Mm.
So from my point of view, that's what Bruce told me to do, right?
Yeah.
This was like that. So how much of that someone else would read, or if it was more of a private letter to me, I don't know. I just know that it doesn't happen very often that you get something where you really feel like it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
Just occupy it.
And then you have all these other incredible performers to play with in this playground,
Which was
as
a
well.
big thing.
Yeah.
That's a big, more than I have often or let's say extremely rare to have that kind of, maybe unique entirely. On this level with this many actors operating at that level, which I sort of would expect with it. Benicio del Toro, for example. I don't know if there's a more imaginative actor. Leo, who's just so solidly fantastic and a great, he has this leadership built into his quality in terms of, I think what we're talking about is that all of the influences on this led by Paul, and none of them there but at the invitation of Paul. Just make you feel comfortable that you can walk the high wire and it's worth it.
Paul mentioned last night when I asked him about Johnny Greenwood's score for the film that Johnny had kind of given him some stuff that he could play on set. Mm-hmm. And I wondered if that was something that was around when you were shooting, and if it was helpful when you know...
It very much, whatever those guys have together, very much affirmed and articulated more clearly, sort of clarified what I sensed was the tonal shifts. And again, very surprising. Now, when I listen to it now, it's the only thing it could be. But it was excitingly surprising, the musical attack on it that we were experiencing, particularly during dailies.
Yeah. Is music something you lean into, or you have leaned into throughout your career, around performance and finding characters or prepping for characters, or?
Well, the biggest part of that would be that, I think that as an audience, of my more formative years, let's say in the early 70s, by and large, the indelible films for me were very, music was a character in them, and many times songs were. The obvious Harold and Maude or The Graduate and that sort of thing. Coming Home. So I think that I have an automatic affinity toward that. Of course, I can be very impressed by and moved by films that have the restraint, and not to use it also. It's just attack and different kinds of projects. But I think that I tend to where I can get music, I think I choose it. I like having that addition to it, to the what's at play.
Yeah. You mentioned a Springsteen track from The Indian Runner, and I'd really love to talk to you about you as a filmmaker and that relationship with music. I've been doing this podcast. I launched it 10 years ago next year to have a conversation about music and film and that relationship, and I think Into the Wild is possibly one of the films that I have mentioned the most as being one of my favourites for many reasons, but one of that being the music, both Eddie's songs and Michael and Keith's score and stuff. And so it's an honour to get the chance to ask you a little bit about that, if you don't mind. What do you remember about that process of finding what the music needed to be for that story and for that film?
Well, the book of Into the Wild, when I first read it so seemed to be everybody's story in one way or another. That some connection to Wanderlust and that kind of rite of passage of it. For men and women, there was some part of it that really connected, and I think that I knew right away that the first song that sort of drove my the images in my head was one I didn't end up using, but was during the writing of it a big encouragement, which was the use of Islam Now, but then Cat Stevens' Miles from Nowhere. And so I knew that I was very much connecting with that level of soulfulness of a voice and so on. So this pretty quickly led me to Ed, very American story for one thing. I wanted an American, but also Ed's voice is sort of the voice that I imagine mine to sound like in the shower. if I could communicate in song, it would sound like that. Lamentably, it doesn't. And also his soulfulness as a songwriter. And so I went up to Seattle and showed him a very early cut, like not even of the whole film. And he connected immediately. And we would, in the editing room, we would just get these little presents, these files that would come down from Seattle. And so he was writing in real time with our post-production.
Yeah.
And so there, and I had made room for it in the script. In other words, there was another character in the movie, and that was going to be filled by the songs. I made it in terms of the pacing of the script, the timing. I indicated where the songs would be, and for the most part stayed with that. I've said, often that I'm a music and narration dependent director. And I think that's largely true.
Hard Sun is a song that I will listen to every week, sort of thing. It's almost like a meditation in a way. It's kind of, it just makes me grateful, really. It's just a wonderful, wonderful piece of music. But going back to the Indian Runner then, that idea that a song inspired, a film, and what was the kind of, what was the journey of that, in terms of hearing that piece of music, it connecting with you, and it encouraging you to write and direct this story?
Well, I had heard the original song, Highway Patrolman, on a demo tape At the time, I was living with Bruce's little sister, Pam.
No way.
Yeah.
I met her in Manchester. She's a photographer.
Great. Yes.
Yeah, I met her in Manchester.
So in our early 20s, we
Yeah.
were a couple. And I had not met Big Brother Bruce. He was on the East Coast. But one night after several Heinekens and listening to that thing, I said, I got to talk to your brother. And so I think I had one movie that had come out, and Fast Times was going to come out, and he would have no idea who he was talking to. But what he would have is all the security in the world that if this kid that's dating his little sister is saying drunk on Heineken when he's waking me up in New Jersey at 3:30 in the morning, can I make a movie out of that song? I can safely say yes, it'll never happen. And he did. And then 8 years later, I just went ahead and wrote it. And I called up Bruce and I said, hey, remember that guy, me, that was dating your sister? And I said, would you read the script? And he read it and he said, go for it.
Wow.
Yeah. But but I didn't use that song because he wrote a song about 1968. And so I had, some of the greatest, era of American songwriting to play throughout that movie.
Yeah.
Back when you could afford the song.
So expensive
Yeah.
now. But then speaking to Jack and David about how the music, you've obviously got, the story's got that connection to the song for you. How did you approach the score for that film then in terms of...
Well, that was so much relying on Jack Nietzsche and David Lindley and John Hammond. These were icons of that. They were the heroes of the people who wrote those songs. And so I was just a beneficiary of their inspirations, and it was very easy to say, yes, that works in this scene.
It's got to be a bit more than that.
Well,
for
the
sure.
other thing was Jay Cassidy, my editor, who has great taste in music and understands the blend of music, and in the way that I value it.
Yeah.
And was able to bring an awful lot to the party as well.
Do you like that side of filmmaking, of working with and collaborating with the musicians and the composers on that side?
Oh
of
yeah,
things?
I love it. You have to be careful that you don't get drunk on it, because there's no such thing as a bad section of film played under a great piece of music. So you got to make sure that in context you're staying with the mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you seen Deliver Me From Nowhere yet? The making of...
No, I'm looking forward to it.
It's quite special. It's, in terms of the origins of that song being, being written and how and why and
Right.
the environment that it was in and stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Very good actors involved also.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the two Jeremys are extraordinary. And what about The Pledge as well, in terms of the music of that, and Hans Zimmer working on that, and Klaus as well?
Yeah, so it's funny, that one, when I was doing some work on the script. It wasn't my script, but I was kind of, I guess, making the movie my own to a degree, and I'm mostly in very practical ways. Like it had been written for a very horizontal environment, let's say Minnesota kind of landscape or something like that, and I wanted a vertical environment, so I was I was injecting the mountains into it. And as it rose into the mountains, I was listening to Hildegard von Bingen compositions. And there were things in the choral aspects of that, and in the kind of, spiritual transcendence. And then when I got with Hans Zimmer, we had one discussion. And again, there's a great story about John Huston being in a bar and someone coming up to him, some drunk coming up to him saying, Huston, you're not so great. 50% of directing is casting. And Huston said, 85. And that's true of the crew also. And I think if you make good decisions about your people, then you've made the decision that's going to answer the area that if I could write the music to my movies, I would.
Yeah.
but I picked the people. If you pick the people right, and that was a really exciting one because we got to, I think, partly because of the timing and the way the film was budgeted. I think we pretty much had to score a picture. So he had all his musicians in session. I'd sit on the floor. We had a big screen. We'd go to the scene, and they'd all play live, and instinctively to it, based on the themes that he'd written. That was great.
Yeah, nothing like it. Physical effect that have when you've been surrounded by musicians.
And they're
like
there being affected by what the actors are doing and playing with them. And,
yeah. And is it a different process for you when it's a documentary as opposed to, a feature? For Superpower and working with Justin on the composer on that, how did that differ, if it did, from working on a feature?
It did differ in the sense that I would say, the Ukrainian music was pretty new to me.
Yeah.
And by Ukrainian music, that's not one thing, right? But understanding which parts of it that are great, you can find a lot of great music work. But the very first cutting of the movie, I had gotten, I had a co-director on that, and because we were not making the film we set out to make, and we had no idea going in that it was going to be about a war. We were going to make this light, coverage of this comedic actor turned president, and then Putin had different ideas for the movie.
Yeah.
So I had not scheduled my life to be very hands-on in the putting together the assembly. And most of the map of what happened with Jonathan there was done with Aaron Kaufman. And then I came in and I was able to it was almost, in a sense, it's a lot easier to script doctor than it is to script. And so then it took a long time with the cut because the story was changing all the time. And it took a lot more trips back than was expected. One had to clear their schedule in ways unexpected. So I didn't work closely with him. I worked closely with the work he had delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question. It's not an odd one, but Lockjaw.
Mm-hmm.
Does he listen to music? What kind of music is Lockjaw into?
I have this thing, you'll forgive me, that I will never forget sitting down in a hotel, between a bathroom and a bedroom in a hotel room, dripping wet from the shower, reading the script to One Battle After Another the first time. And I am determined that even though others may, I don't want to take one bit of that experience away from the audience or put anything in their heads that they don't get, like I did, directly from the script. They can have it directly from the movie and see it their way.
I like it. Can I give you my interpretation?
Yeah.
He doesn't listen to music because it makes him feel.
I think it's as good an interpretation as any. But it would be great if but it's like the David Bowie talked, and in Brett Morgan's documentary, Moonage Daydream, great.
Yeah, great film.
And he talks about, that the audience of his music puts so much more depth into it than he had intended. And what a great thing when they do. So I'm hoping that for Paul's movie, because he certainly offered it.
Yeah, you've all created something really, really special. Thanks for your time, Sean.
Thank you.